I collapsed at church during Sunday service. The doctor said I was having a massive heart attack and needed emergency surgery immediately. They called my daughter, over and over again. No one answered. 3 days later, when I woke up surrounded by beeping machines and IV tubes, the first thing I saw wasn't my family's worried faces. It was a photo of my daughter smiling on a beach, standing arm in arm with her husband's family, champagne glasses raised, captioned, "No stress, pure bliss." That's when I realized they weren't ignoring me by accident. They had already chosen to live without me. And when she finally came back, everything had changed. My phone was filled with 47 missed calls, all desperate, all too late. Before we begin, if stories about family boundaries and quiet strength resonate with you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'd also love to know where you're watching from. Your city or country matters more than you think. And for clarity, some details in this story have been fictionalized for educational and narrative purposes. Any similarity to real individuals or situations is coincidental, while the message is meant to be reflective and meaningful. The morning sun filtered through the stained glass windows of Grace Community Church, casting colored patterns across the wooden pews. I'd been coming here for 30 years, first with Philip, then alone. That Sunday morning in late July, I sat in my usual spot, third row on the right, with Geneva beside me. Pastor Kendall was midway through his sermon when I felt it. A tightness in my chest, like someone had wrapped a band around my ribs and was slowly pulling. I shifted in my seat, trying to ignore it. Just tension, I told myself. Stress. Nothing more. The organist struck the opening chords of "How Great Thou Art," and the congregation rose to sing. I stood with them, but the tightness had become pressure, heavy and insistent, spreading across my chest. My left arm tingled. Geneva glanced at me. "Sylvia, you look pale." "I'm fine," I whispered. I wasn't fine. The pressure became pain, real pain that made my breath catch and my vision narrow. I reached for the pew to sit down, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. My hymnal hit the floor. "Sylvia." The stained glass windows spun together, blues and golds and reds blurring into one. Then my knees buckled. What happened next came in fragments. Geneva's face above mine, lips moving in prayer. Pastor Kendall's urgent voice calling for help. The rough carpet against my cheek, hands lifting me. The crushing weight in my chest that wouldn't stop. The sirens came quickly. Paramedics materialized with their equipment, asking questions I couldn't fully answer. They put an oxygen mask over my face, started an IV. Everything happened fast, yet slow, like a dream I couldn't wake from. I heard Pastor Kendall somewhere nearby. "I'm trying to reach her daughter. It's going straight to voicemail." Claudia. Where was she? Why wasn't she answering? The ambulance ride, blurred sirens, wailing equipment, rattling a paramedic telling me to stay with him, to keep my eyes open. The darkness at the edges of my vision kept creeping closer. At the hospital, everything accelerated. Bright lights overhead, hallways flashing past, voices calling out medical terms I didn't understand. "Mrs. Palmer, you're having a heart attack," a doctor said, leaning into my field of vision. "We need to get you into surgery immediately." Heart attack. The words felt distant, like he was talking about someone else. "My daughter," I managed. "We're trying to reach your family," a nurse said gently. But where was Claudia? Then I heard a voice I recognized, breathless and panicked. "Sylvia, I'm here." Sierra. Not my daughter, but the young woman I'd taught 15 years ago. She appeared beside the gurney, face pale but determined. "I'm her emergency contact," she told the nurse without hesitation. It wasn't true, but no one questioned it. "What do you need me to sign?" The nurse handed her papers. Sierra's hand shook as she wrote, but her voice stayed steady. "You're going to be okay. I'm not going anywhere." They wheeled me toward the operating room. Sierra walked alongside, holding my hand through the railing. "Claudia," I whispered. Something sad and angry flickered across Sierra's face. "Don't worry about that now. Just focus on getting through this." The operating room doors swung open. Sierra had to let go. The last thing I saw was her face in the small window, watching me disappear into that bright, sterile space. The last thing I thought as anesthesia pulled me under was a question that would haunt me. Where was my daughter? The surgery took 6 hours. I wouldn't know that until much later. I wouldn't know that the hospital had called Claudia's number 47 times over the next 3 days. I wouldn't know that Sierra slept in an ICU chair refusing to leave. All I knew was darkness, and then nothing at all. When I opened my eyes again, 3 days had passed. The first face I saw wasn't the one I expected. The beeping was the first thing I heard. Steady, rhythmic, mechanical. Then I felt the tube in my throat, not painful exactly, just wrong foreign. My chest ached with every shallow breath. I tried to open my eyes, but my eyelids felt weighted like someone had sewn tiny stones into them. When I finally managed to force them open, the world came into focus slowly. White ceiling tiles, fluorescent lights humming overhead, the sharp antiseptic smell of a hospital. Machines surrounding me, their screens glowing with numbers and wavy lines I didn't understand. And Sierra slumped in a chair beside my bed, her head tilted at an uncomfortable angle, dark circles under her closed eyes. Sierra, not Claudia. I must have made a sound, a whimper maybe, or a gasp, because Sierra's eyes flew open. For a moment she looked disoriented, like she'd forgotten where she was. Then her gaze locked on mine and her whole face transformed. "You're awake." She was on her feet, instantly reaching for my hand. "Oh, thank God, you're awake." I tried to speak, but my throat was too dry, the words catching somewhere between my chest and my mouth. Sierra saw me struggling and pressed the call button. "Don't try to talk yet," she said gently. "Let me get the nurse." A woman in scrubs appeared within moments, young, with kind eyes, and her hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her name tag read Kimberly. "Well, hello there, Mrs. Palmer." She said, her voice warm despite the clinical efficiency of her movements. She checked the machines, adjusted something on my IV, shone a light in my eyes. "Welcome back. You gave us quite a scare." She removed the breathing tube carefully, and I coughed my throat raw. Someone Sierra held a cup of water with a straw to my lips. The water was the best thing I'd ever tasted. "What?" My voice came out as a croak. "What happened?" "You had a heart attack, dear." Nurse Kimberly said, her tone matter-of-fact but not unkind. "At church Sunday morning. They brought you in for emergency surgery. You've been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days." The number felt impossible, like a gap in time I'd never get back. "Your heart is stable now," she continued, making notes on a tablet. "Dr. Lawson will be in shortly to explain everything, but the surgery was successful. You're going to be okay." The relief should have overwhelmed me, but all I could think about was the empty chair on the other side of my bed, the chair where my daughter should have been sitting. My daughter. I managed my voice, still hoarse. "Claudia. Where is she?" Something shifted in Nurse Kimberly's expression. Her professional warmth dimmed slightly, replaced by something that looked like sympathy. Or maybe pity. "We tried calling your family many, many times, dear," she said carefully. "Left messages. Called repeatedly over 3 days." The words landed like stones in my chest. Sierra squeezed my hand. "The hospital called," she said quietly. "A lot. No one answered. But they must have gotten the messages." I heard myself say, even as a cold feeling spread through my stomach, "Their phones must have been off, or maybe there was an emergency. I'm sure they had their reasons," Sierra said, but there was something in her voice I couldn't quite identify. Something sad and angry all at once. Before I could ask more, the door opened and a man in a white coat entered. Dr. Lawson, according to his name tag, probably in his 50s, with wire-rimmed glasses and a reassuring presence. "Mrs. Palmer, glad to see you awake." He pulled up a stool and sat down at eye level, a gesture I appreciated. "Let's talk about what happened and what comes next." The next 10 minutes passed in a blur of medical terminology. Myocardial infarction, coronary artery blockage, stent placement, lifestyle modifications, cardiac rehabilitation. The words washed over me, important but somehow distant. All I could think about was, where was Claudia? "Your prognosis is good," Dr. Lawson said, standing. "You'll need to take it easy, follow the medication regimen, make some changes to diet and activity. But with proper care, you should have many good years ahead of you." "Thank you," I whispered. After he left, the room fell quiet except for the persistent beeping of the monitors. Sierra sat back down, watching me with worried eyes. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Really?" I didn't know how to answer that. My chest hurt. My throat hurt. Everything felt heavy and strange. But more than the physical pain was the growing hollowness in my stomach, the question I couldn't stop asking. "Can you check something for me?" I asked Sierra quietly. "Can you check if Claudia knows I'm here?" Sierra's jaw tightened. She reached for her phone, unlocked it, and started scrolling. I watched her face, searching for reassurance, for some explanation that would make this all make sense. Her fingers stopped scrolling. She stared at the screen for a long moment, her expression shifting from confusion to something harder, something that looked like anger. She looked up at me, and I saw something in her eyes I couldn't quite name. Pity, anger, both. "Sylvia," she said softly, holding out the phone toward me. "I think you need to see this. I don't use social media much. Never saw the point. Philip used to tease me about it, said I was stuck in the 20th century. I'd always preferred real conversations, actual phone calls. The idea of broadcasting your life to strangers felt strange to me. But Sierra's phone screen glowed between us now, and there was my daughter's face smiling. I had to squint to make sense of what I was seeing. The interface was unfamiliar, all those little icons and hearts and numbers I didn't understand. But the photos were clear enough. Claudia stood on a beach, arms around Simon, her husband, and Luke, my 7-year-old grandson. Crystal blue water stretched out behind them. All three wore sunglasses and broad smiles. Luke held up a plastic shovel, his grin gap-toothed and proud. The sun caught the highlights in Claudia's hair, making her look golden, carefree. The caption beneath read, "Much needed getaway with my loves." I stared at those words. Much needed getaway, my loves. "When was this posted?" My voice came out flat. Sierra's finger pointed to the timestamp. "Monday morning, the day after you collapsed. 18 hours. They'd posted this 18 hours after I'd fallen in church, after the ambulance had rushed me to emergency surgery. "Scroll down," I heard myself say. Sierra hesitated, then moved to the next post. Luke, this time, crouched beside an elaborate sandcastle, his small hands patting wet sand into towers. Simon knelt beside him, helping to dig a moat. Both of them laughing. The caption, "Beach day, no work, no stress, pure bliss." "Posted Tuesday afternoon," Sierra said quietly, "while you were in ICU. No work, no stress, pure bliss." I read the words again, then again, like if I looked at them long enough, they'd somehow mean something different. There were more photos. Sierra scrolled slowly, letting me see each one. Claudia and Simon at a sunset dinner, tropical drinks with little umbrellas. Luke in a resort pool wearing inflatable arm floaties. A selfie of Claudia in a sun hat with another cheerful caption about paradise and family time. Every single photo radiated joy, vacation bliss. Not a hint of worry or concern, not a shadow of doubt. They knew. That's what kept circling through my mind like a skipped record. They had to know. The hospital had called many, many times, the nurse had said, left voicemails, sent messages. And yet here they were, posting happy family photos, while I lay unconscious with my chest cracked open. "They have cell service." I said, the words coming out strange and disconnected. "To post these, they have service." "Yes," Sierra said. "So they got the messages." "Yes." "And they just—" I couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't make my mouth form the words. "Stayed. Chose the beach over me. Chose those umbrella drinks and that perfect blue water over their mother, their grandmother, lying in a hospital bed." I looked at Luke's face in the sandcastle photo. My grandson, 7 years old, all bright eyes and missing teeth and complete innocence. He didn't know. Of course he didn't. He was a child building castles, splashing in pools, having the vacation of his life. How could he know that back home his grandmother had nearly died? But Claudia knew. Simon knew. Sierra was watching me, her jaw tight with anger on my behalf. I can't believe she would... I held up my hand. I needed a moment. Needed to breathe through the crushing feeling in my chest, and this time it had nothing to do with my heart. I went back to that second post. Read the caption one more time. No work, no stress, pure bliss. The realization settled over me slowly, heavy as a wet blanket. I was the stress. I was the thing they'd needed a vacation from. That's why they'd gone in the first place, wasn't it? Not to celebrate something special, just to get away from me. From the mother who called too often, who asked about Luke's school events, who wanted to be included in their lives. I'd become a burden, an obligation, something to escape. Sylvia. Sierra's voice was gentle. I handed the phone back to her and closed my eyes, but I couldn't unsee those images. My daughter on that beach, that brilliant smile. My grandson building sandcastles, his whole world perfect and uncomplicated. And me alone in this hospital bed, tubes and wires keeping me alive, while my family chose paradise. When had I become someone worth leaving behind? Lying there in that hospital bed, I couldn't help but remember another hospital room. Another time my daughter wasn't there when I needed her most. The pain medication made me drowsy and memories surfaced like ghosts. 2 years ago, had it really only been 2 years, it felt like a lifetime. Philip, my husband of 40 years in a different hospital bed. Different walls, but the same relentless beeping of machines. The same antiseptic smell. The same weight of waiting for the inevitable. He'd been sick. I won't say with what it doesn't matter now. What matters is that he was dying and I'd called Claudia to tell her it was time. "Honey, you need to come," I'd said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's time to say goodbye to your father." Her voice on the phone had been distracted. I could hear keyboard clicking in the background. "Mom, I have a huge presentation tomorrow. Career defining. I've been working on this for months. I don't think he'll make it past your presentation." A pause, then defensive. "Don't guilt trip me. I'll drive up this weekend, Saturday morning." "Please, Claudia, he's asking for you. Dad will understand. He always understood about my career." She'd hung up, and I'd sat there alone with Philip, holding his hand, watching him slip further away. Thursday night, he grew weaker, drifting in and out of consciousness. Each time he woke, he asked the same question, "Where's our girl?" And each time I lied. "She's coming soon, honey. She'll be here." Friday morning, 6:47 a.m. The numbers on the clock are burned into my memory. Philip took his last breath with me, holding his hand, and a nurse standing respectfully nearby. But no Claudia. She arrived Monday afternoon. The funeral was Tuesday. She came straight from the office, still wearing her work clothes, a charcoal suit and heels that clicked on the funeral home floor. At the service, she was composed. Appropriate. People commented on how well she was holding up. "Your daughter is so strong," they'd said. I'd thought she wasn't here for it. After the funeral, she stayed exactly 2 days. She'd come to me Wednesday morning. "I really need to get back, Mom. Simon needs me at the office. You'll be okay, right? You're strong." Strong, that word again. She'd left that morning and I'd handled everything alone. The paperwork, his belongings, the endless questions about bank accounts and insurance policies, the crushing silence of coming home to an empty house. I'd told myself even then that people grieve differently. She was busy, she was building a career, she'd come around. 2 years later, she never had. The visits grew shorter, the phone calls less frequent, holidays became obligations she tried to avoid. And I kept making excuses for her, kept believing that the daughter I'd raised was still in there somewhere, just temporarily buried under deadlines and presentations. But she wasn't. This was who Claudia had become. Maybe this was who she'd always been, and I'd just refused to see it. The nurse came in, then pulling me back to the present. Her name tag said Kimberly, the same kind one from earlier. She adjusted my IV, checked the monitors. "How's the pain?" she asked. "Manageable." I said, though, I wasn't sure which pain she meant. The physical one in my chest or the older, deeper one that had been there for years. After she left, I lay there staring at the ceiling tiles, connecting the dots I'd refused to see before. 2 years ago, Claudia had chosen a presentation over her father's deathbed. This time, she'd chosen a beach vacation over mine. It wasn't grief. It wasn't coping. It wasn't being too busy or too stressed. It was a pattern. And the pattern was clear. I had never been her priority. In the days that followed, as my strength slowly returned, I found myself remembering. Not just Philip's death, but everything that came after. All the small rejections I'd made excuses for. I'd spent 2 years trying harder. After Philip died, I was terrified of losing Claudia too. So I reached out more. Called more often. Tried to stay connected to my daughter and my grandson Luke, my 7-year-old grandson who barely knew me. The first year was full of small disappointments I'd brushed aside. Luke's kindergarten graduation. "We can't make it, Mom. Work conflict." I offered to babysit. "We have a nanny. Everything's covered. I asked about family dinners. We're just so busy with Simon's career right now. Then the holidays started shrinking. The first Christmas after Philip died, Claudia came for 3 days. It felt like an obligation, but at least she came. Last Christmas, just dinner. They left right after dessert. This past Christmas 2024, she called 2 weeks before. We're spending the holidays with Simon's parents this year. I'd said it was fine. I understood. They needed to split time between families, but deep down I knew. I wasn't part of the rotation anymore. The phone calls changed too. We used to talk every Sunday evening. Then it became monthly. Then sporadic. Sorry, Mom can't talk. I've got to run. When we did talk, she sounded distracted, annoyed, like I was interrupting something more important. I sent Luke birthday cards, no thank you calls. I asked about his school events. Never invited. I requested photos. She forgot to send them. I convinced myself she was overwhelmed. That's what mothers do. We rationalize our children's behavior. I'd spent 2 years justifying her absence. 3 months ago, May, she called out of the blue. Hey, Mom, quick update. We're doing a family trip in July. My heart lifted. Oh, that sounds wonderful. Where are you going? Caribbean resort. Just us and Simon's parents. The phrase hung there. Just us. I wasn't even considered. We really need some quality family bonding time, you know. The implication was clear. I wasn't part of that family. I swallowed the hurt. That sounds amazing. You deserve a great trip. When I hung up, I sat alone in the empty house Philip and I had filled with 40 years of memories. I cried for the first time since his funeral. Even then I told myself not to be clingy. They needed their space. But I knew the truth even if I wouldn't admit it. I'd become the person they left behind. Lying in that hospital bed, I couldn't hide from it anymore. I'd spent 2 years making excuses. Too busy, too stressed, too focused on their own family. But I'd been lying to myself. Claudia wasn't too busy to visit. She simply chose not to. She'd been building a life that didn't include me. Slowly, deliberately. One rejection at a time. The Caribbean trip was just the clearest example. She'd invited Simon's parents, her husband's mother, his father, people she saw at holidays anyway. But not me. Not her own mother. The pattern was undeniable. But I still didn't know why. Why had my daughter pushed me away? Why had I become someone to avoid those answers would come soon enough, and they would hurt worse than the heart attack? While I lay there drowning in painful memories, I became aware of Sierra in the corner of the room. She'd pulled a chair close to my bed, reading a book and checking on me every few minutes. She'd been doing this for 4 days straight. Earlier, Nurse Kimberly had remarked, "That young woman is so devoted to you." I watched Sierra now feeling grateful but also confused. Why would a former student do this when my own daughter wouldn't? Then the memory came back, 15 years ago, 2010. Sierra was in my 11th grade English class. A quiet kid who sat in the back hood pulled up, slouched down like she wanted to disappear. She was failing tests, sleeping through discussions. Other teachers complained, "That girl doesn't even try." But I noticed something they didn't. The way her hands shook when she turned in assignments. The dark circles under her eyes. Things at home were hard. I didn't know details then, but I recognized the signs of someone drowning. One afternoon in April, Sierra stayed after class. I was grading papers, looked up. She was standing there, tears streaming down her face. "Mrs. Palmer, can I talk to you?" She sat down, completely broke down. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," she said. She was 16, desperate. Doing what? Any of it. School, home. Pretending I'm okay when I'm not. It was the kind of confession that terrified me. She was struggling, thinking about giving up. "Hey, look at me." I moved closer. "Your life matters. You matter to me." That was the beginning. I started tutoring her after school, 3 times a week, unpaid. My choice. I connected her with the school counselor. Sometimes she just needed a safe place to sit. I checked on her every single day. "How are you today, really?" I brought extra lunch, made sure she ate. I advocated with other teachers, give this kid a chance. Slowly things changed. Her grades improved. She started participating in class. She smiled more. By senior year, she was thriving. Graduation day 2011. Sierra found me in the crowd, hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "You saved my life, Mrs. Palmer. Literally, I will never forget that." We stayed in touch. She updated me through college, got her degree in social work. Because of you, she said. Now she helped struggling teens. Paying it forward. She still called me every month. Visited on holidays. When Philip died, she came to the funeral, held my hand through the entire service. And now here she was, sleeping in an ICU chair, refusing to leave, while my daughter posted beach photos. I'd told Sierra 15 years ago that her life mattered. Now she was showing me that mine did too. My daughter, the child I'd raised, loved, sacrificed for, she was sipping tropical drinks. And Sierra, who owed me nothing, she hadn't left my side for a second. Day 4, late afternoon. Geneva set the flower arrangement on the bedside table and sat down carefully, like she had something heavy on her mind. "These are from the church community," she said. "Everyone's been praying, asking about you." "That's kind of them." "Pastor Kendall sends his regards. He'll visit tomorrow." Geneva fidgeted with her purse strap, clearly anxious. I recognized that look. "What is it, Geneva?" She hesitated. Then, "There's something I need to tell you. I've been debating whether I should—" A pause, then she exhaled. "Sylvia, your daughter called me last week." I blinked. "Claudia called you. They barely knew each other." "Yes, out of the blue. We hadn't talked in months, years maybe." "What did she want?" Geneva shifted uncomfortably. "At first she was friendly, asked about church, how I was doing. Then the questions started getting strange. Strange how, she asked, "How does my mom seem to you lately, Geneva?" I didn't understand. "What do you mean?" "Does she seem sharp mentally? I felt Sierra's presence in the corner. She'd stopped reading. Geneva continued. "I told her, of course you were sharp. You're as mentally clear as anyone I know." "What did she say?" She kept pushing. "No memory issues, forgetting things." Repeating stories, seeming confused about dates or events. I got defensive. I said, "Absolutely not. Your mother is fine." Geneva's voice dropped. She said, okay. I'm just worried about her living alone at her age." "Has she mentioned feeling unsafe, any incidents?" "I told her you were perfectly capable." Then she said, "Right. Well, don't mention I called. I don't want to worry her." And she hung up. Geneva looked at me. I thought it was odd, but I let it go. But then you had the heart attack and she didn't come. And I started thinking about those questions. The room felt colder. It felt like she was trying to, build a case. Build a case. The phrase hung in the air. Like she was trying to make people think you were declining. Geneva said quietly. Sierra stood up, moved closer to my bed. She and I exchanged a look. Geneva touched my hand. "I'm sorry to bring this up while you're recovering, but I thought you should know." After Geneva left, I lay there staring at the ceiling. My daughter hadn't just ignored my emergency. She'd been calling people, asking if I seemed incompetent. The question was why. I wanted to believe Geneva was reading too much into it, that Claudia was simply concerned. But a cold feeling was creeping through my chest, and this time it had nothing to do with my heart. The next morning, day 5, I had another visitor. Bonnie shuffled in with a container of homemade cookies, and the moment I saw her face, I knew Geneva's story wasn't an isolated incident. Bonnie was 78, my neighbor, for over 30 years. Sweet woman. She'd been watering my plants, bringing in my mail and packages, keeping an eye on the house. "Oh my goodness, you gave us all such a fright." She set the cookies on the bedside table. "I'm so relieved to see you awake and talking." We chatted about the neighborhood. She'd been checking my mailbox daily, brought the trash cans in last Tuesday. Everything at the house was fine. Then your daughter called me, My attention sharpened. "Claudia called you." "Yes, last week, Tuesday, I think. Same week as Geneva's call. She was asking about you, so thoughtful. We don't talk very often, so it was nice." "But," she hesitated. "What did she ask?" "Well, she wanted to know if you were okay. Living alone, I mean. She asked if I'd noticed anything concerning." There it was again, the same pattern. "Like what? Any falls or accidents? Did you seem forgetful, confused about dates, trouble managing the household? Any signs you weren't safe living alone?" I felt Sierra shift in her chair behind me. Bonnie looked confused by the questions even now. I told her you were fine. Better than me, honestly. "You help me more than I help you. You brought my trash cans in for me last month when I threw my back out. You reminded me what day of the week it was last Thursday." She shook her head. Claudia seemed disappointed with my answers. She said something about being proactive about your care. "At Mom's age," she said. "Like 66 is ancient, I'm 78 and doing just fine, thank you very much." After the call ended, Bonnie thought it was a bit odd, but I figured she was just a worried daughter checking on her mother. Now knowing Claudia hadn't come to the hospital, I'm not so sure anymore. Bonnie looked at me carefully. "Everything okay between you two, hon?" I reassured her, but my mind was racing. After Bonnie left Sierra and I sat in silence, 2 women, 2 phone calls, the same strange questions. Geneva thought Claudia was building a case. She was right. But for what? The answer came that afternoon, brought by Sierra. She'd gone to my house to grab some clothes and personal items. When she returned, her face was pale. In her hand was an envelope I'd never seen before. Before I tell you what was inside that envelope, what Sierra found in my mailbox that would confirm my worst fears, I need to know you're still with me on this journey. If you think family should show up when it matters most, type 1 in the comments. If you've ever discovered someone close to you was plotting behind your back, type 2. And if you believe it's never too late to stand up for yourself, type 3. Your comment lets me know you're here, and honestly, I need that right now. Because what I'm about to share, it's going to get harder before it gets better. One more thing, some elements of this story have been adapted for educational purposes and may not reflect exact events. If you'd prefer to stop here, I understand. But if you want to see how this ends, stay with me. Sierra stood in my hospital doorway holding a yellow envelope like it might bite her. "Sylvia," she said quietly, "you need to see this." It was late afternoon, day 5. She'd gone to my house earlier to grab clothes and personal items. While there, she'd checked the mailbox, found this waiting. She handed me the envelope. Her face told me everything before I even looked. The return address read Sunrise Senior Living, a facility in the neighboring county, addressed to my home. My hands shook as I tore it open. Inside was a glossy brochure, the kind with professional photos, elderly people smiling over coffee, participating in art classes, sitting in a bright, cheerful dining room. At the top in bold letters, Memory Care Services. Below that, assisted living for seniors who need specialized support. 24/7 medical care in a comfortable environment. For someone who actually needed help, this place might be wonderful. But I didn't need help. Not like this. And then I saw what was tucked inside. An inquiry form, partially filled out. Someone had already started the application process. For me, patient name Sylvia Palmer, age 66. Then came the checkboxes, 4 of them, all marked. Memory issues checked. Confusion and disorientation checked. Unsafe living alone checked. Family concerns about care checked. Every single box, every single one a lie. I felt Sierra move closer, reading over my shoulder. The medical history section sat blank, waiting for information, presumably from hospital records Claudia hoped to access. Then I saw the emergency contact line. Claudia Palmer Martin, daughter. Her phone number neatly filled in her handwriting. The authorization signature line at the bottom blank. I checked the postmark, 5 days ago, mailed 1 day before I collapsed at church. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Geneva's phone call establishing memory issues. Bonnie's phone call establishing unsafe living alone. This brochure, this inquiry formed the plan. She was building a case, I said aloud. My voice sounded strange, distant. Sierra sat down in the chair beside my bed. "Keep reading." I looked at the bottom of the form. The financial section. Questions about assets, property ownership, insurance policies. Someone Claudia had been inquiring about my house, about Philip's life insurance payout, about my retirement savings, about everything I owned. The realization hit harder than the heart attack. This wasn't about concern for my well-being. This was about control, about money, about getting me out of my house so she could sell it, access my accounts, take what was mine. "She's been planning this for weeks," Sierra said quietly. "Maybe longer." I thought about the Caribbean vacation, scheduled months ago, probably. When I had my heart attack, Claudia didn't see a crisis requiring her presence. She saw an opportunity, A medical emergency would strengthen her case. See, Mom literally collapsed in public. She can't handle living alone. Except I hadn't been alone. My church family had been there. Sierra had been there within minutes. Pastor Kendall had called 911. Geneva had held my hand. Claudia had been sipping drinks by a pool. And now she wanted everything. The betrayal felt physical, worse than the chest pain that had dropped me on the church floor. This was my daughter, the child I'd raised. The person I'd defended made excuses for loved unconditionally. She'd been gathering testimonies about my supposed decline, filling out forms with lies, planning to force me into a facility against my will, all so she could take my home, my independence, my life. I stared at that inquiry form, at those checked boxes, at my daughter's handwriting, at that blank signature line, until the words blurred. She needed my signature, or she was planning to forge it. Either way, she'd made her move. Sierra touched my hand. "What do you want to do?" I closed my eyes, then opened them. That night, lying in the darkness after visiting hours ended, I made a decision. Claudia thought she was 3 steps ahead. She'd underestimated her mother. It was time for me to make my move. The next morning, Dr. Lawson cleared me for discharge. Sierra drove me home, not to some small apartment I'd eventually moved to, but to the house Philip and I had shared for 40 years. The house Claudia wanted to take from me. Sierra helped me up the front steps carefully. Inside, everything felt both familiar and strange. The same furniture, the same photos on the walls. But I was different now. She got me settled, arranged my medications, reviewed the doctor's instructions, made sure I had everything I needed. "Are you sure you'll be okay here alone?" she asked, hesitant to leave. "I need to do something," I told her. "Alone." She understood, hugged me, left. That evening I sat in Philip's old armchair, the one he'd read the newspaper in every morning for decades. I looked around at our life together. Wedding photos, pictures of baby Claudia, Luke as a toddler, 40 years of memories in this house. Claudia wanted to take all of this away, put me in a facility, sell everything we'd built. That wasn't going to happen. I picked up the phone, called Ms. Catherine Brennan, our family lawyer. "Sylvia, I heard about your heart attack. Are you all right?" We talked for a few minutes about my recovery. Then I got to the point. "Catherine, I need to change my will urgently." Her tone shifted. Professional. "What's happened?" I explained, calmly, factually. The heart attack at church. My daughter ignoring 47 calls from the hospital, 47 Catherine. She was on vacation, posting on social media the entire time. Then I found the nursing home inquiry, the phone calls to my friends trying to build a case that I was declining. Ms. Brennan listened, silent. When I finished, she said quietly, "I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, I've seen this before. Adult children sometimes." She paused. "Well, what are my options? We can revise your entire will, set up a trust for your grandson that his parents can't access, disinherit your daughter completely, make charitable bequests. You maintain control until you pass. This is permanent, Sylvia. Once it's done, it's very difficult to reverse. Are you absolutely certain?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life." "All right, give me 3 days to draft everything." We made a plan. Ms. Brennan would prepare new documents, a trust for Luke with her as trustee, charitable donations to the church, a scholarship fund in Philip's name, youth programs Sierra worked with. Claudia would get nothing. We'd schedule an estate meeting, present it as routine. Claudia would come expecting to discuss her inheritance. The reading would be a surprise. "I'll have everything ready by day 9, Ms. Brennan said. "We'll meet on day 10, Thursday." After we hung up, I sat in Philip's chair for a long time. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not revenge. This wasn't about punishing Claudia. This was about protection, about justice, about taking back control of my own life. My daughter had tried to manipulate everyone around me, to paint me as incompetent, to steal my home and my independence. She'd underestimated her mother. For the first time in 2 years, I felt like myself again. Not the woman desperately trying to earn her daughter's love, but Sylvia Palmer, teacher, widow, survivor. And I wasn't finished yet. 3 days later, my phone rang. Claudia's name lit up the screen. She'd returned from her vacation paradise, and she had no idea her world was about to change. Day 9. I let the phone ring 3 times before answering. When I picked up, Claudia's voice poured out in a rush of panic that would have been very convincing if I hadn't seen her posts online. "Mom, oh my God, Mom, I just saw all these messages." My voice was calm, controlled. "Hello, Claudia. Are you okay? What happened? The hospital called?" She said the hospital. Singular, not hospitals. She knew it was serious. "I had a heart attack." Silence on the other end. "A heart attack when?" 9 days ago, Sunday service at church." Another silence, longer this time. Then she recovered. "Oh my God, we were out of the country, completely offline." A lie. She'd posted photos online multiple times. Beach shots, dinner photos, clear captions about relaxation in paradise. "Mom, our phones just did not work. No service at all." Another lie. They had international plans. The resort had Wi-Fi. I knew because she'd tagged the location. "How bad was it? Are you okay? Did you need surgery?" Questions now. Too late. I answered briefly. "Emergency surgery. I'm home now." "Surgery. Why didn't anyone contact us?" Here it was. They tried 47 times. The silence that followed was different. Heavy. "Well, the service was terrible. If we'd gotten through, if we'd known." Less confident now, the excuses were thinner. "If we'd known it was that serious, I would have come home immediately. You know I would have Mom." "Would you?" "Of course, Mom, you're my mother. You come first always." Hollow words. But she was committed to the performance. "Let me come see you right now. I'll bring Luke. He's been asking about you constantly." Luke hadn't been asking. Claudia hadn't told him anything. I knew that too. Tomorrow is fine. "Tomorrow then, first thing in the morning, we'll be there." The next morning, day 10, Claudia arrived at 10:30, with Simon, without Luke. "Luke had school," she explained quickly. "I didn't want him to miss. He has that spelling test." Translation didn't want him witnessing this conversation or interfering with whatever she had planned. They came dressed for work. Claudia in a crisp business suit, Simon in gray pinstripes, straight from the office. This wasn't a priority visit, it was squeezed between meetings. A quick hug. Claudia's arms around me briefly, then releasing. No warmth. "Glad you're feeling better, Sylvia," Simon said with professional politeness. We sat in the living room. They took the sofa. I took Philip's chair. 20 minutes of shallow conversation followed. Claudia talked about the vacation. It was exactly what we needed. The resort was incredible, 5 stars, right on the water. Luke learned to snorkel, and the food, Mom, the food was amazing. She described meals, excursions, the spa, Simon's golf game. Almost no questions about the heart attack. My recovery. How I was managing alone. Whether I needed help. She checked her phone twice. Simon glanced at his watch once. After about 10 minutes of vacation stories, I said, "I need to discuss something with you both." The shift was immediate. Body language changed. They both leaned forward, suddenly attentive. "About my will, my estate. There are some updates that need to happen after this health scare." Claudia's eyes brightened. She tried to hide it. Failed. Simon nodded with rehearsed seriousness. "Of course. That's very wise after a significant health event. Estate planning should always be current. Can you meet with Ms. Brennan Thursday at 2 o'clock? Claudia, too eager. "Absolutely, we'll be there. Whatever you need, Mom." "We're here for you," Simon added. "Whatever you need to put in place." They stayed exactly 20 minutes total, left with promises to stop by again soon and check in more often. "Love you," Claudia called from the door. Empty, automatic. I watched them drive away from my front window. Claudia was probably on her phone already talking to Simon about the estate meeting. They thought they were coming to discuss their inheritance, to secure their financial future. They had no idea they were coming to lose it. Thursday morning, I woke early, put on my best dress, the navy one Philip had always loved. If I was going to do this, I was doing it with dignity. Sierra picked me up at 1:30. "You ready?" she asked. I nodded. I'd never been more ready for anything. Ms. Brennan's office smelled of leather and old books. I'd been here before for Philip's will for estate planning over the years, but I'd never felt the way I did walking in that Thursday afternoon powerful. The conference room had wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and a large mahogany table, surrounded by leather chairs. Professional. Serious. Exactly the right setting for what was about to happen. Sierra and I arrived at 1:45. Ms. Brennan greeted us warmly. "Everything's ready, Sylvia. Are you absolutely certain?" "Completely certain." We waited in the conference room. I sat at one end of the table, Sierra beside me. My heart was steady, my mind clear. At exactly 2 o'clock, Claudia and Simon arrived, both dressed in power suits, Claudia in black with gold jewelry, Simon in navy with a silk tie. They walked in with the confidence of people expecting a business discussion about their financial future. They stopped cold when they saw Sierra sitting there. Claudia's voice went sharp. "What is she doing here?" "Ms. Brennan, professional and firm. Ms. Martinez is here at Mrs. Palmer's request." Simon stepped forward. "This is family business." "Sierra I.S. family," I said quietly. "Sit down." They exchanged a glance, reluctantly took seats across from us. The tension was immediate, palpable. Ms. Brennan sat at the head of the table, file folders arranged in front of her, Simon jumping in. "So regarding the estate division and updates," I held up my hand. "Before we discuss that, there are some things I need to say." "Mom, if this is about the vacation, let me finish, Claudia." My voice was calm but steel-edged. The room went silent. I began, my voice steady, prepared. "I know you were on vacation when I had my heart attack." Claudia started to speak. "I'm not finished." I paused. "The hospital called you 47 times over 3 days. You didn't answer once." "I already explained we didn't have service." "You had enough service to post on social media." I pulled out my phone. Sierra had helped me take screenshots of the posts. I showed the timestamps. Posted while I was in the hospital. Beach day, no stress, pure bliss. While I was in the ICU. Claudia's face went pale. Simon shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I continued calm and factual. "I know you called Geneva." I pulled out handwritten notes. Asked if I seemed forgetful, confused. Asked about my memory. "I know you called Bonnie. Same questions. Concerns about my safety, whether I could manage living alone." Claudia tried to interrupt. "I was worried about you living by yourself." "No, you were building a case." Silence. I reached into my bag, pulled out the yellow envelope, slid the Sunrise Senior Living brochure across the table. "I know about this." Claudia stared at the brochure like it had fallen from the sky. Simon's jaw clenched. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Ms. Brennan sat perfectly still, watching. Sierra's hand found mine under the table, squeezed once. I opened the brochure, showed them the inquiry form, the checkboxes marked with lies, my name, my age, the emergency contact line with Claudia's information in her handwriting, memory issues, confusion, unsafe living alone, all checked, all lies. "Mom, that's not..." "I found this in my mailbox 5 days before the heart attack, Claudia. Mailed from this facility with an inquiry you'd started, with questions about my assets, my home, my insurance." Simon cleared his throat, started to say something professional, calculated. I cut him off. "You made phone calls trying to convince my friends I was declining. You had brochures sent to my house about memory care facilities. You posted photos online of your vacation while I was in surgery. And when you finally came to see me exactly 20 minutes, by the way, you barely asked about my health, but your eyes lit up the moment I mentioned my estate." Claudia's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. I saw the color drain from my daughter's face, watched her scramble for explanations, but I wasn't interested in her excuses anymore. The truth was laid out on that table in glossy photos and checked boxes, in timestamps and phone records and handwritten notes. Now it was time for the consequences. Claudia was the first to find her voice. It came out defensive, sharp, the tone of someone caught lying. "You're misunderstanding." "Then explain it to me," I said, steel beneath calm. She scrambled. "We were genuinely worried. You're living alone at your age. I'm 66, not 96. After Dad died, we thought you might need support." "Support or control?" Simon intervened, his lawyer voice sliding into place. "Mrs. Palmer, you have to understand, we have demanding careers." I turned to him. "So demanding you couldn't answer a phone call when I was dying." That's not fair. Fair. Let me tell you about fair. I turned back to Claudia. Your father's funeral. You stayed 2 days. 2 days to mourn the man who raised you. Claudia defensive. I had obligations, responsibilities. Yes, but never to me. I listed the pattern, calmly, factually. Luke's kindergarten graduation didn't attend. Holidays visits shrinking year by year. Phone calls shorter, more annoyed. Last Christmas, Simon's parents were chosen over me. Claudia's tears started. A manipulation attempt. Mom, you're making this sound worse than it is. Am I pointed to Sierra. This woman, a former student, sat by my hospital bed for 5 days. She held my hand before surgery. She slept in an ICU chair. She was there while my own daughter was posting vacation photos. The contrast was stark, undeniable. Claudia was crying now. I'm sorry. Okay, I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. This was a choice. Many choices. Every day you chose not to answer the phone. I read from my phone the caption from her post. No stress, no drama. That's what you wrote. I was the stress you needed a vacation from. Simon stood up. This is ridiculous. We came here to discuss estate planning. Yes, I said. Let's discuss that. I looked at Ms. Brennan. Catherine. Ms. Brennan opened the leather file, her tone formal. We are here for the reading of the revised last will and testament of Sylvia Palmer. Claudia and Simon sat up straighter. Despite everything, they were focused now. This was about money. Ms. Brennan began reading the formal legal language. Then she reached the bequests section. To my beloved grandson, Luke Palmer. A trust fund valued at $100,000, designated for educational expenses, only to be managed by Catherine Brennan as trustee, with no parental access until the beneficiary reaches age 18. Claudia started to smile. At least Luke got something and they could control it. Ms. Brennan continued, the funds shall be used exclusively for tuition books and related educational costs. Parents shall have no access, no oversight, and no authority over disbursement decisions until Luke Palmer reaches legal adulthood. Claudia's smile froze. What? Simon said. The trust is protected, Ms. Brennan said. Parents have no access. But Luke is 7, that's 11 years. Exactly, I said. 11 years, you can't touch it. Claudia was doing math in her head. I could see it. $100,000 for Luke. But the estate was worth much more. Her eyes went back to Ms. Brennan's file folders. What about the rest? She asked, her voice thin. Ms. Brennan looked down at the will again. There's more, she said quietly. And I watched my daughter's face as she realized this was only the beginning. Ms. Brennan turned the page slowly, deliberately. She'd done this before, delivered difficult news with professional calm. But I could see a flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. She'd seen families like mine, and she approved of what I'd done. To Sierra Martinez, $50,000 in gratitude for demonstrating the true meaning of family. The room erupted. Claudia jerked upright. Simon leaned forward. Sierra was shocked. Sylvia, I can't... I reached over, took her hand. You deserve it, for being there. Claudia's face, confusion shifting to anger. I could see her calculating. $100,000 to Luke they couldn't touch. $50,000 to a stranger, $150,000 gone. And the rest, Simon demanded. Ms. Brennan continued. To the following charitable organizations. She began listing. Grace Community Church, $100,000. The Philip Palmer Memorial Scholarship Fund, $80,000. County Youth Advocacy Program, $40,000. Claudia was doing math, her face darkening. $220,000 to charities. Total so far $370,000 to everyone else. Simon's voice was tight. That's most of the estate. Mrs. Palmer retains $80,000 for personal use and end-of-life expenses, Ms. Brennan stated. Claudia shot to her feet. The chair scraped against the floor. This is insane. You can't do this. Ms. Brennan, cold and professional, I assure you Mrs. Palmer is well within her legal rights. She's clearly not thinking straight. She just had a heart attack. Ms. Brennan pulled out a document. Dr. Lawson performed a comprehensive mental evaluation last week. Cognitive testing, mental status examination, all passed with flying colors. She pushed a copy across the table. Official medical letterhead. Mrs. Palmer is of sound mind. This will is ironclad. Simon's lawyer instincts kicked in. We'll contest this. There's undue influence from her. He pointed at Sierra. Go ahead and try, Ms. Brennan said coolly. You'll lose and spend thousands in legal fees. This will was carefully drafted, properly witnessed, and Mrs. Palmer's capacity has been documented in writing. Claudia's voice went shrill. All this over one vacation. You're punishing us for one mistake. I stood now, with dignity, with power. One vacation, number A funeral where you stayed 2 days. Number A heart attack, you ignored number. My voice was steel, but I wasn't shouting. This is about 35 years of being made to feel invisible. 35 years of standing behind your career, your social life, your in-laws. 35 years of excuses and empty promises. We gave you everything, we included you in everything. When? I asked quietly. When did you include me? Not at Christmas, not at Luke's events, not in your family vacations. You wanted my money without giving me your time. My final line, calm and absolute, now you have neither. Claudia grabbed her purse, furious. Simon followed, his face tight with rage. At the door, Claudia turned. You'll regret this when you're old, alone, and need us. I've been alone, Claudia, I said softly, steadily. I've been alone for years. The difference is, now I'm choosing it. The door slammed behind them. The silence that followed was clean, like air after a storm. Sierra was crying quietly. Miss Brennan was gathering papers. And I stood there at 66, feeling free for the first time in decades. After they left, Miss Brennan asked if I was all right. I nodded. I was more than all right. But I knew this wasn't really over. The hard part wasn't cutting them off. It was living with that choice. In the days following the confrontation, my phone rang constantly. Never Luke. Claudia made sure of that. But Claudia herself trying every tactic she'd learned in her business career. The first call came 2 days later, crying. Mom, please, I'm really sorry. I made terrible mistakes. Can we talk in person? I'll explain everything. My voice was firm but not cruel. Actions have consequences, Claudia. Are you really going to throw away 35 years over this? You threw them away, not me. I hung up. More calls came over the following days. I ignored most, answered some. Each call a different tactic. Anger. You're being ridiculous, vindictive. Guilt. Dad would be so disappointed in you. Manipulation. Think about Luke. You're hurting your grandson. Negotiation. What if we do family therapy together? My responses stayed brief. Boundaries clear. I'm not discussing this further. Simon called too. Please reconsider. This affects Luke's future. Luke has $100,000 for college, I said. That's more than you've saved for him. That's not fair. Ignoring 47 phone calls wasn't fair either. I hung up. The boundaries held. The calls tapered off. News travels fast in a small town. Geneva told Pastor Kendall I'd given her permission. The church community learned the basics. Heart attack. Family absent. Will changed. The community response was mixed, but mostly supportive. Some felt uncomfortable. Didn't know what to say. Most were supportive. We noticed she never came to visit. One church member said, she always had reasons for everything. Another, we saw how you lit up when Sierra came. Never saw that with your daughter. Recognition I didn't know I needed. Pastor Kendall visited me at home. How are you really feeling about all this? I was honest. It hurts. Even though I know I'm right, it hurts. Of course it does, he said gently. Pain isn't just for death. It's for any loss. You're grieving the daughter you wished you had. I cried then, really cried, the first real tears since the confrontation. The community rallied around me, brought meals, mowed my lawn, offered companionship. Sierra visited every day, helped with my recovery exercises. Physical therapy was progressing well. My heart was healing slowly. By week 3, I made a decision. I listed the house for sale, too big, too many memories. I need a fresh start. I found a small apartment near Sierra, near the church. 1 bedroom, manageable, affordable. The moving process was healing, sorting through Philip's things, my things, learning to let go. Some items went to charity, some to Sierra, some I kept. Week 4, the house sold quickly. Good market. The money went into my estate, most already designated for charities and Luke's trust. I kept my $80,000. Moving day came. Sierra and friends from church helped. The apartment was small but cozy. It felt like home immediately. Less to clean, less to maintain, more freedom. Geneva came by with a housewarming gift. "You look lighter," she said. I realized I was. 1 month after the confrontation, I was sitting in my new apartment drinking tea when someone knocked. I opened the door. Sierra stood there holding someone's hand. Someone small. Someone I'd missed every day. Luke looked up at me with Philip's eyes, those warm brown eyes I saw every time I looked at my grandson. "Hi, Grandma," he said shyly, and my heart, which had been through so much, felt like it wanted to burst. I knelt down carefully, my heart still healing, and pulled Luke into my arms. He smelled like grass and sunshine and childhood. When I looked up at Sierra through tears, she was smiling. "I missed you so much, Grandma," Luke said into my shoulder. "I missed you too, sweetheart, so much." Sierra explained, sort of. "He kept asking about you. I thought, well..." She trailed off. Whether Claudia knew or permitted this visit, neither of us said. I didn't ask. We spent the afternoon together. Cookies I'd baked that morning, stories, coloring books spread across my small kitchen table. Luke told me about school, his friends, his swim lessons. Then he pulled something from his backpack. "I made this when you were sick. Mom said she'd give it to you." A drawing, stick figures. "Get well, Grandma, I miss you," in wobbly child handwriting. My heart broke and healed at the same time. "She didn't give it to you?" Luke asked, confused. "She must have forgotten, honey, but I have it now." I put it on the fridge immediately, where it belonged. Luke looked around the apartment. "This is your new home." "It is. Do you like it?" "It's cozy," he said. Philip used to say that, my heart squeezed. 3 hours passed. Games, snacks, laughter. As Sierra prepared to leave, Luke asked, "Can I come back?" I looked at Sierra. She nodded. "Yes, I'll make sure of it." After they left Sierra and I sat in silence. "Thank you," I said. "He's your grandson," she said simply. "You deserve to be with him." We didn't discuss what Claudia might think. Some things are worth fighting for. That was 6 weeks ago. Luke has visited 3 more times since then. It's been 3 months since the heart attack now. October 2025. My physical health has improved significantly. Daily walks, gentle exercise, careful diet. Dr. Lawson says my recovery is remarkable for someone my age. My mental health is better than it's been in years. I've established new routines. I volunteer at Sierra's youth advocacy program twice a week, helping struggling teenagers. Full circle. I share my story modified about resilience, about choosing yourself. Church activities continue. Sunday services, Wednesday volunteering. Geneva is a close friend now, not just an acquaintance. We host small dinner parties. Pastor Kendall comes monthly for tea and chess. I'm planning my first solo trip. I've always wanted to see the Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Portland, the coastline. I booked it for spring using part of my $80,000. I'm scared, I'm excited. It's the first trip without Philip in 40 years. But I'm doing this for myself. The apartment feels like home. Philip's photo sits on the mantel. Luke's drawing decorates the fridge. Sierra's housewarming plant is thriving. Books are everywhere. I'm finally reading for pleasure. My phone hasn't rung with Claudia's number in weeks. It's a mix of relief and sadness. Sometimes I wonder, will she ever change? Will we ever reconcile? I don't know the answer, but I know I chose right. People ask me about family now. What is family really? Blood is thicker than water, they say. But the full saying is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. The bonds we forge in loyalty are stronger than biology. I'm 66 years old. I survived a heart attack. I lost my daughter, though I'm not sure she was ever really mine to lose. But I gained clarity, freedom, self-worth. The future is uncertain. Claudia may change. She may not. Our relationship may heal. It may not. But I know this, I've stopped making myself small. I've stopped trying to earn love from people who don't want to give it. Sierra visits twice a week. Luke came yesterday, his 4th visit. Pastor Kendall calls every Sunday evening. Geneva and I have book club every Thursday. The teenagers at the program call me Mrs. Sylvia. And there's a plane ticket sitting on my desk, leaving in 2 weeks. My first solo adventure in 40 years. It's terrifying, it's exciting, it's mine. People say it's never too late to start over. I hope they're right. Because at 66, I'm finally learning who I am when I'm not trying to be what others need. And you know what? I think I'm going to like that person. And to you listening to this story, remember, this God places people in our lives for a reason. Some to teach us, some to test us, and some like Sierra to show us what true family really means. When I collapsed in that church 3 months ago, I didn't know it then. But God was already preparing a different path for me. A path where I would learn that His love doesn't require me to shrink myself to receive it. I've mentioned God 3 times in these final moments because faith carried me through the darkest hours. When my daughter chose a vacation over my hospital bed, God sent a former student to hold my hand. When my family abandoned me, God surrounded me with a church community that showed up. And when I thought I'd lost everything, God reminded me that He'd been there all along. I just had to stop begging for scraps from people who'd already decided I wasn't worth the meal. This is one of many family drama stories I've witnessed in my 66 years, family drama stories that taught me hard lessons about loyalty and love. But what makes Grandma's stories like mine different, what makes these grandma stories worth sharing is this. We often think we're too old to start over, too tired to set boundaries, too late to demand respect. I'm here to tell you you're not. Don't be like I was. Don't spend decades making yourself invisible, hoping that if you're quiet enough, small enough, convenient enough, people will finally see your worth. They won't. Because people who truly love you don't need you to audition for their affection. Don't be like I was answering every call, accepting every excuse, believing that blood automatically equals loyalty. It doesn't. I wasted years thinking that being a good mother meant accepting whatever crumbs my daughter offered. I was wrong. Don't be like, I was afraid to use your voice, afraid to name the hurt, afraid that setting boundaries makes you selfish. It doesn't. It makes you sane. Here's what I believe now, looking back. Family isn't who shares your DNA. Family is who shows up when your heart stops beating. Family is who sits in uncomfortable hospital chairs for 5 days straight. Family is who brings you housewarming gifts for your tiny apartment and tells you that you look lighter, freer, more yourself. These family drama stories, the real ones, the messy ones, the painful ones like mine, they all share a common truth. Love that requires you to disappear isn't love at all. And grandma's stories like mine exist to remind younger generations that it's never too late to choose yourself. No matter how old you are or how long you've been waiting for someone to choose you first. I turned 66 this year. I survived a heart attack. I lost my daughter but found my worth. And if my story helps even one person set a boundary, walk away from toxicity, or recognize that chosen family is just as valid as biological family, then every painful moment was worth it. So here's my final thought. You teach people how to treat you. For 35 years, I taught my daughter that she could ignore me, exclude me, manipulate me, and I'd still be there with open arms and an empty inheritance waiting. When I finally changed the lesson, she didn't like it, but that wasn't my problem anymore. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family? Have you found your own chosen family? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you found value in my journey, please consider sharing this video with someone who needs to hear it and subscribe to this channel for more real stories about courage, boundaries, and second chances. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end, for listening to an old woman's story about heartbreak and healing, for being part of my chosen family today, even if just for these few moments. One final note. Some stories on this channel may include fictionalized elements created for educational purposes. If you prefer different content, please feel free to explore other videos that align with your preferences. But if you're here for the lessons, the hope, and the truth that it's never too late to reclaim your life, then welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Until next time, remember, the only approval you truly need is your own and God's. Everything else is just noise.